You're listening to the Parents of Hardworking Teens podcast, episode 112. What to do when a plan doesn't go to plan, and how to figure that out before that happens when we're actually making the plan. Stick with me. I'm Katie Jones, and with over 15 years in education as an award-winning high school teacher, international external examiner, and as a study coach, I've helped thousands of students skyrocket their results and confidence. And this podcast is where I share all my insights, tactics, and tips with you, the parent, so you can help your hardworking teen get happy, smart, and successful in their study, and have you both enjoy the journey along the way. This is the Parents of Hardworking Teens podcast. Hey VIPs, how are you? I hope you are super well and that your teen's week is going brilliantly so far. And if it isn't going brilliantly for them, then this episode is for you. Because we're going to get into the fact that, shocking truth, things don't always go to plan. And I'm a real planner, so this is definitely a topic that is very close to my heart or my brain. I do believe that the more carefully you plan, then the more likely things are to work out. But I also know that sometimes the universe just didn't get the memo about the plan. And just because you planned it or just simply thought things would work out a certain way, things come up, situations or priorities change, and life just sometimes gets in the way. And I'm going to use the example of my 10-week grade transformation program to base this discussion on, because Gemma is our English focus coach, and she is also our success manager at Rock Solid Study. We actively follow up with all 10WGT students who haven't quite, or in a couple of cases, let's be honest, haven't at all stayed on track with progressing through the modules. Now, I will say Gemma is usually the one actioning a lot of this as success manager, but we work together on how best to do this. And I've particularly been interested in helping these students get back on track and supporting them to do so, but also with that, having them make a plan for when things might go off track again. Preemptively predicting what might come up and scupper any plan that they make and what to do when that happens. Because we all know that things come up, or we get sick, or for me recently, a house that you want suddenly comes up for sale, and before you know it, you are moving house. Now, we give 12 weeks access to the 10-week grade transformation program so that there is some extra time and a bit of a buffer to catch up if needed, or to give time to recap anything students want to at the end. And not giving unlimited, unspecified time is very much on purpose. That 10 weeks of content and the 12-week time frame is there to provide structure and momentum. Because if there's no deadline, then the chances of whatever the thing is getting done drop dramatically. We think that having more time means it's more likely to get done, but it is the opposite. Having finite time creates urgency and a deadline, and therefore momentum and motivation. Plus, I just want students to have this training, have these skills and strategies in their toolkit and be able to use them as soon as possible so they can start benefiting from them as soon as possible. I want them to have everything within one term. And so behind the scenes, we have a 2-week check-in near the start and an 11-week check-in towards the end, and a more official, less behind the scenes, halfway check-in where the parent and student answer a couple of quick questions. And Gemma jumps in and offers help and support if things don't look like they're on track. And we help students set up a doable action plan. But of course, if everything was as simple as just setting up an action plan and then it all just magically happens, then they probably wouldn't have been off track in the first place, right? So here's what I've taken to doing when I work with students personally and in more detail on consults or review calls or in next level coaching. Yes, we put a plan together for whatever it is that they want or need to do or make happen. And then instead of just saying, okay, now go off and do it, I then ask, And what do you think might stop this from happening? Or what might mess up this plan? Or are there any things that might stop this plan going to plan? And I really like doing this extra step for 2 reasons. Number 1, it reminds them that the making of the plan isn't enough. We actually have to follow through with that plan, and that might not always be easy. Just like enrolling your teen into the 10-week Great Transformation Program isn't going to magically mean that they get all of the skills and techniques in it, they actually have to actively complete and fully engage with the program in order for that to happen. And then number 2, it reminds us all that we're all human, that things come up, other stuff gets in the way, and that if we plan for that happening, which is, when you really think about it, possibly more likely than not, then we actually have more control over the outcome or the progress that we want, and more control over our expectations and emotions along the way. Because the unexpected becomes a tiny bit more expected. And therefore, we're not just going to say, oh, well, this happened, and therefore my plan went off track or even completely out the window. And interestingly, we already do this for big things in our lives. Like insurance is literally this. I don't plan for my house to catch on fire, but I have building and contents insurance in case it does. And I don't plan to crash my car, but I have car insurance in case I do. And my husband does this massively. Anytime we go to an airport, he will always add on at least an extra hour in case there are traffic jams or any other unforeseen holdups, which can sometimes mean we get there before the check-in desk is even open. But I will say, touch wood, we've never missed a flight. And I know that that is probably jinxing things now, but I know that I personally would probably leave things a little bit more down to the wire if it were just me. Now, I'm not someone who likes to be late for anything. And like I said, I am definitely a planner, but I'm also often fallen into the trap of, whilst trying to be super efficient with my time, I end up planning in or thinking I can get done more than I actually can, or things won't take as long as they actually do. So I am grateful that I have a partner who helps balance that out for me a little bit. And it's interesting because in other parts of my life, I am literally trained for this. Teachers are trained in classroom management. As a teacher, you would never go into a class and expect every minute of the lesson to go completely according to your lesson plan, where no one gets stuck, no one disrupts anything, no one's forgotten their book or their pen or was away last lesson so is behind and needs to catch up, and things like the projector and the tech will all work perfectly all of the time. We literally build in contingencies and we have behavior management strategies and, yes, spare paper and pens, or these days, device chargers for all of this and more. We use seating plans to minimize potential disruptions. We differentiate tasks to account for different students' abilities and learning styles or learning rates. That is just part of teaching and lesson planning. You literally plan for those things, not just in case, but because these things will happen. And I've even begun to action this strategy for us as a team within Rock Solid Study. Now, when we have an event or something new that we're launching or running, we actually have a page as part of the planning document where we brainstorm all of the issues that might crop up, from the prep to the admin to the execution, and we pre-plan what we'll do to either minimize the chances of those things happening, or we plan what we'll do in response. So we already know what we're going to do if or when they do happen. So back to the student plan. Once the student has come up with a few ways that that plan might well go off track, then we set up almost a separate plan B. Like, okay, what if you get sick and you can't complete the module that week? What are you going to do? Or what if your sports team ends up making the finals and you have extra training and matches at the weekends or evenings and have less time? What if whatever it is that they've brought up? What will you do in response? Or what will you do in advance to minimize that actually being an issue for you? And interestingly, no student has ever said to me, oh, well, I'd just give up and I just wouldn't do it. They've always been able to come up with a plan B. And it usually doesn't even feel like a particularly big deal to figure it out when we're figuring it out in advance. It's not such a big struggle to come up with an alternative or a way to make up the time or a way to reprioritize. And I mention priorities because I do think that intentionally considering what is truly a priority is important. Sometimes in the moment, we just default to the things that are routine or habit, or just that we'd rather do in that moment, rather than truly considering what is most important or will bring the greatest positives long term. Because sometimes a student will say, well, I can't do it then because I have a work shift or I have whatever other commitment is on at that time. And I will invite them to consider whether they might swap or skip that thing that week. Not because study and grades is more important than everything else, but perhaps the outcome and benefits might actually be worth prioritizing just for 1 week. Because once you have the skill or the insight or the concept or the strategy, you have it. It's like you can't unsee it. You don't forget how to ride a bike. And I know I'm biased with this, but the amount of stress and disappointment and chinks in students' confidence that I see when they don't have these skills and concepts and insights. And I know that this one module would fix that, or make every essay from now on take half the time, or make revision for every exam from now on way more effective, then yes, I'm going to advocate for it. And you can make these sorts of changes without leaving anyone in the lurch when you've foreseen some of these possibilities, some of these issues or problems. So I'm not saying don't honor commitments. This is the point of planning ahead for these things, so that then you don't leave yourself in the lurch of going even longer without these skills. You honor your commitment to yourself by getting the training that will make your studies smoother, faster, and more confidence and success filled in future. And you study more efficiently so you have more time for all of those things in future. So whenever there is a plan being made, consider also planning for the ways that it might not go to plan. So that when it doesn't, and when you think about it, there's actually a good chance that something will come up. There's a good chance that it won't go perfectly to plan. Then A, it's not going to be a bombshell. It's not going to come as a total surprise, and it won't create a ton of stress or drama. And B, your team will know exactly what they're going to do to get back on track. And hey, if there are no problems, then that's a very happy bonus. Maybe that should actually be the surprise. Like, wow, I thought that this, or this would crop up along the way and cause me some issues or cause me to have to change tack. But hey, it didn't. And that's very cool. So give this a go with your teen and their study. Like I said, we're all already using this when we take out insurance. I'm using it more and more for planning ahead in the business. And we tend to do it for the big or expensive or important things in life. And I would love to hear any of your teens' plan Bs or backup plan examples. And I also hope that actually they don't even have to use it. Have a brilliant rest of your week, and I will catch you back here next week. Bye. If you're ready to have your teen achieve their best possible results with less stress, then I want to invite you to enroll them in the 10-week Grade Transformation Program, where they're going to learn the key concepts, skills, and strategies to catapult their performance in assessments and exams. It's risk-free. They either achieve bigger and better results with a whole lot more confidence in 10 weeks, or we refund you in full. Just head over to www.rocksolidstudy.com/program, and I'll see you there.